Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Eric Mack with MetaMask, here to talk prediction markets with Dustin Gouker. What's up, Dustin?
Not much. Glad to be on.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. You're in Oregon, is that right?
I am. I'm in the middle of Oregon, not in Portland, in a small town called Bend here in the mountains.
Oh, Bend. I didn't know you're in Bend. Bend is nice. Okay, I'm in Taos, New Mexico, so we're mountain town brethren.
Yeah.
Shout out there. I came across your Substack and your newsletter, and also your X feed, which is a good follow, called Event Horizon. So tell me a little bit about Event Horizon, your background, your beat. Tell us about you.
Yeah, so I've been in writing about the gaming industry for about 10 years now. Covered the rise of DraftKings and FanDuel as daily fantasy sports operators. Obviously, they became the largest operators here in the US in terms of sports betting and online gambling. Before that, I was just a journalist for a long time, ran my college paper, worked for the Washington Post and a bunch of other papers, then got into the gaming industry. Couple years ago, I guess, I started up some newsletters, one called The Closing Line, which is more about gambling in the US and online sports betting and the rise of that in the last 7 years since sports betting got really big here in the United States. And then about a year ago, prediction markets obviously started blowing up here in the US as they started allowing trading on sporting events. And I started another newsletter just on that to cover, Kalshi, Polymarket, and all the other news and regulatory and legal information that's going on there. So that's a daily newsletter that I now publish as well. Just whatever's going on in the prediction markets world, I'm covering it and I'm aggregating all the news around prediction markets.
So, are you a sports guy? Are you a betting guy? Are you like a poker guy? I'm just curious, like, what was the draw for you personally to this beat?
All of those things. I was a poker guy. I was an online poker
Okay,
player, and
okay.
I did content back in the 2000s before Black Friday here in the U.S. when Department of Justice shut down a bunch of poker sites that serve the U.S. So I was really into that. I've been in sports journalism pretty much all my life. Worked at sports desks pretty much everywhere I worked. Big sports fan from Pennsylvania, a fan of the Eagles and the Phillies and all the teams there. And I'm actually not a huge better gambler, trader, any of those things. I do it for fun. I'm certainly not serious about it. I will take a flutter on a game here or there, do some parlays, but so it's like it's all these things that kind of got wrapped up together. And again, I've been in the gaming space for 10 years now, and it just there's a lot of intersection between all this. We have people in the gaming industry that are joining the prediction markets industry, and it's all a pretty natural synergy for me where I'm at in my career right now. So.
All right, well, let's jump into it, particularly what you've been writing about this week. I took note of that you covered Polymarket's new deal involving real estate markets. Can you kind of sum up this news for us and why you think this is a particularly interesting use case for prediction markets?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about prediction markets is they're supposed to be used to hedge real world events and help us with price discovery. So this deal is about home prices starts out just major metropolitan areas, and it's hard to get involved in real estate without like buying and selling actual pieces of real estate, right? That's like, it's kind of, you can't, there are other ways to do it, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. So prediction markets where you can trade on what the average home price will be in a city is super valuable to lots of cohorts of people. I'd say, like, homeowners themselves, to people who build or are in contracting, who build homes, to people who are realtors. This is pretty fundamental stuff, and I think it's really interesting and really is like this big picture, this really great thing for prediction markets, because there's a lot of speculation going on right now in prediction markets, right? That we do that doesn't necessarily dovetail with things that have real world impacts and economic impacts. And I'd say this is like the greatest example of a good thing coming out of prediction markets, and that you have now a way to hedge on things if you're exposed to the real estate market, or you want to speculate on it, but you don't want to buy a house, or you don't want to buy or sell real estate to be exposed to that. So it's a fascinating use case. I'll be really curious to see how it goes, and like how liquidity stands up behind it, whether institutional capital gets in there. But there really should be a lot of people who are interested in trading on this. And then, like, real estate's just this huge asset class that, again, outside of actually owning real estate, it's a little hard to be exposed to that. So
yeah, I think you mentioned the key phrase there, which is price discovery, which, like you said, like important asset class, like gigantic. I think the biggest asset class, but like notoriously hard to get like a real world like price. Like if you're trying to sell your house or buy a house, you got to, particularly in a rural area like where I live and you're near some, you got to get comparables. And let me tell you, I live off grid in a weird area. Comparables here are like near impossible. So I think that price discovery is particularly interesting.
Yeah, we see the trend lines of like history, right? And realtors will try to and people who are in the industry will try to forecast it, but this is again, if there's enough liquidity behind it and people trading into it, like, we're going to get trend lines. It's got daily, but also, I think the idea will be to have monthly and quarterly and annual and longer term, like having those trend lines and what people think about that, especially, again, if it's people trading into it who have real exposure to this market, realtors and builders and all of those things, like, it's going to be really interesting to see that data. Again, look, instead of just relying on historical data and guessing what the trend line will be, now we're going to see where this is headed. And I sound a little bit like an evangelist, and I guess maybe I am, but this is what prediction markets were made for, and this is what makes me excited about them. So
yeah, we're going to look at a couple of those specific prediction markets for these new real estate ones in just a minute. But tell me a little bit about how this works. So it's a Polymarket has a deal with a startup, I think, called Parcel, and they're providing the actual price data. Is that right?
Yeah, they're an on-chain company. I know some folks who are over there who follow me. But yeah, they're providing real-time housing data, and they're going to help with the resolution of this, and they're going to be the source of truth for real estate pricing. Obviously, this is big for them. They're an on-chain company partnering with a company that's crypto native in terms of how they allow trading. So yeah, like this again, it seems like a really great piece of synergy. And from my part of the world, people get so laser focused on the sports aspect because it's what's blown up and what's been big. But these are the kind of partnerships, these are the kind of markets that I think really tell the future and the story of where prediction markets are headed.
Yeah, and as working for a significant blockchain company, being biased, this is also the one of those use cases for blockchain that we've been talking about forever. So
right.
It's really cool to see this dovetail with also prediction markets. So really love this. So we'll dig into a couple of those markets later. Let's see, anything else on the Parcel deal that I'm leaving out?
No, I don't think so. It's again, we're seeing deals kind of across all sorts of categories, especially like media and things like that. Like Polymarket also just did a deal with the Wall Street Journal, which is a pretty big deal, I'd say. Kalshi is partner with CNN. Like this mainstreaming of prediction markets and data is just like a really big story in 2026 as we look forward to the future of prediction markets.
Totally. Yeah. And I saw you also, I think it's mainly a sponsorship deal, but you had covered this morning that Polymarket's got a deal to be the official partner of the New York Rangers. Right. I think that's mostly like a marketing kind of like thing, but always interesting to see kind of these names getting into more and more sectors. I also wanted to talk with you about something that we've been seeing a lot more, particularly with some news events over the weekend. Like one thing that always comes up both in crypto and in prediction markets is the notion of insider trading. And there were some interesting trades that happened over the weekend right before some major news events, particularly in South America. So what went down there?
Yeah, so the story, I mean, obviously everybody probably is aware that the United States attacked Venezuela, extracted the president, arrested him, and that happened. That's obviously a major international news story. There are then prediction markets about this on Polymarket and to a lesser extent Kalshi here in the United States, but where you could trade on. outcomes related to Venezuela. Would the United States invade Venezuela? Would Maduro be out as president? And so what happened was this: a clean wallet shows up and puts sizable trades into some of these markets just before the actual attacks happen and Maduro was extracted. And obviously, we don't. I always caution when I talk about this, because I've talked about this with a lot of mainstream media too. Like, we don't know for a fact, at least I don't think so, as we sit here, that this was an insider trading. But you look at everything, clean wallet. Like the fact that this happened like almost just really right before the actual events happened, it's hard to believe that this is not an insider who had information about it, and rather than just somebody who's speculating on this is going to happen. It's not impossible, but it's kind of defies belief that that's the case. So clean wallet, this person like trades and makes a ton of money on all these markets, because it was like the outcomes before January 31st. It was like it seemed the market priced it very unlikely that these things would happen. And obviously this person either like knew it or had a lot of conviction that this would happen, and made a lot of money on it. So this then dovetails into like this wider conversation about insider information and whether it should exist at prediction markets, and like is it a feature or is it a bug? That is kind of the big question that everybody is grappling with right now. On-chain evangelists and Polymarket are kind of like, this is good because we find information faster if insiders are trading on it. Here in the United States, where this is regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, this is not supposed to be allowed. Kalshi's CEO actually comes out, I think yesterday, and said, we already prohibit insider trading. This shouldn't be allowed. What's going on here? We shouldn't have this. So there's this, I think, push and pull between, is insider information good in terms of it gives us information faster, or is it bad, just like any other market where we kind of say we shouldn't have insider trading, this is a bad idea. There's lots of bad outcomes that come from that, and that's kind of central to all of this. I mean, I think Coinbase's CEO also said that, has been on record saying that insider trading and prediction markets is arguably a good thing because of that. Of if we get people trading into it who know things, then then everybody gets the information faster. I mean, that's a debate for everybody to have, and I'm not sure I know the answer, but I think I land generally on insider trading bad, and we shouldn't have it. The other part of insider trading is like, if everybody knows people or insiders are trading on it, why would average people then bet into that market or trade into that market, right? Why would they do that? They're not going to. You're trading into more information and people who have information. There's an asymmetry there, right? That you can't do that. So it's a really interesting question, and I think Venezuela and the poly markets here really kind of brought all of this to a head and is making people think about it. Is there a national security risk around all of this? Maybe. Like there's a lot of questions I think about this market in particular, and then other markets that have impact on world events. And we've seen other examples. This is the one that I think that's gone the most viral. There's been markets about strikes in Israel and Gaza and things like that. And, and again, this exists outside of the US regulatory structure right now. This is a on-chain rest of world product, technically not legal in the United States. And a little bit of this is going on at Kalshi as well, to a smaller extent. So it's a really interesting thing, and like a question that, I think everybody in crypto and prediction markets is going to grapple with.
Yeah, I think you covered it all there quite comprehensively, but it's interesting, that tension between the money making aspect of prediction markets versus the truth discovery part of it, and there's an interesting tension there that we haven't yet put as fine a point on it as in the securities markets, at least in the United States. So I actually am quite fascinated by that debate, and I might lean a little bit more in the other direction than you in terms of that. I know that might be shocking, but there is some. There's also some. You may have already touched on this, but there's also some legislative efforts to try to ban this as well in the U.S. Right? I think you've covered that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bill from a congressman in New York who's he was apparently already working on this, but is introducing a bill that would prohibit explicitly insider trading by federal officials. Again, we would assume that if this was an insider that traded at Poly Market, that there were a federal official who had access to this information. We learned, I think December 4 also reported that people at the Washington Post and the New York Times knew about this before the attacks actually took place. Could they have traded on it? maybe I find that kind of unlikely. It's probably somebody in the administration who had some access to information if this was indeed an insider. So there's that. I'm not sure that bill's going anywhere, but it's again, interesting that anybody in Congress is taking enough interest in all this to like actually draft a bill and put it out there. And then at the state level, there's like all sorts of legal wranglings and shenanigans going on. States sending cease and desist letters to prediction markets, Kalshi and others suing the states in return. There are pieces of legislation that are coming up where legislatures are starting to meet in January as the new year starts, and we're seeing states try to come up with legislation that would ban prediction markets writ large in their states. It's not clear that really matters, because all these court cases that I just talked about are really going to be where the rubber meets the road, whether states can preempt federal regulation or not, or if this is just going to be everywhere in all 50 states. It's that's a huge part of what I've done over the past year at the Event Horizon, and a big part of the story. I think everybody believes this will eventually get to the Supreme Court in terms of whether this ends up being legal in the final when we get to the resolution of all this at the end of the day, probably still a couple of years from now.
So I also come from a journalism background, and there's in crypto, there's kind of an ongoing debate of like, is it ethical if you're a journalist who covers crypto? Should you be holding any tokens, any Bitcoin, any ETH? And kind of the argument is like, well, you can't. If you've got those bags, you shouldn't be reporting on it because you're biased. But there's also an aspect of it where, like, if you've never held those bags, you don't truly understand the crypto universe. And so I wonder, you said yourself, I think I saw you've actually never done a trade on Polymarket. At least you posted that at one point. So like, how do you feel about that tension? It's not quite the same, perhaps, as crypto, but how do you feel about covering prediction markets? Do you feel it's important to have skin in the game or to not have skin in the game?
I mean, I think it's interesting for people to. I'm not a huge crypto person. I just never got into trading on Polymarket. I do trade on Kalshi a little bit. Not a huge amount, but I do. I mean, I don't think there's any conflict for me or anyone who's covering prediction markets. Like, I want to use the product and understand how it works and like what's going on. So if I'm not touching it and using it and looking at it every day, then I think that's hard to do. I mean, there's not too many there are markets where I'd say I have more information than other people, about the regulatory and the courts and all of that. There's not a whole lot of markets about that, although like ForecastX, one of the CFTC regulated markets, did self-certify markets about Kalshi's court cases, which is a super weird meta. Like I might know more about that than anybody. I'm not sure I have inside information. ForecastX also just self-certified markets about what the volume would be at certain prediction markets, which again, super meta to think about. Like, you can trade on how much volume there will be at other prediction markets. Like, but I don't have any inside information. I might have more information or have a little bit better sense of that. So yeah, like, but there are like, the thing is, in everything where things are being traded, there's been other instances of late where there's been questions about whether there's insiders trading on it. Like Spotify, there's markets on Spotify streams. How many streams a song will get, or will it cross a certain threshold? And we've seen, I think there's somebody who had probably data early, who's trading into some of these markets and then cleaning up on, because they have more data and more information that other people don't do. Again, we don't know beyond a shadow of a doubt whether it's an insider or not, but there's that. Like in everything, like you can trade on who wins Survivor. Like, somebody knows that answer already, right? Like, right. So but every market has these dynamics. Like, the question is, can you actually stop it? What's being done to stop it? Do you care enough to stop it? What's the surveillance look like here, at least in the United States? Again, these are all questions that we're trying to deal with, I think, in real time, and it don't really exist as much on the crypto on chain as it does on the fiat off chain prediction markets here in the United States.
Yeah, we were looking last month at the markets for Time Person of the Year, and it's kind of interesting, at least in the Poly market, the different potential resolutions. Like later, when the Time story came out, the list of potential resolutions, it almost like was like going through the story because they listed a bunch of different AI
Yeah.
architects, and like the first one on the list was Jensen Wang, which was one of the like top resolutions. I'm like, that's interesting. Somebody at Time saw this story like long before this. So again, who knows? You never know. But let's take a look at a couple of markets before we let you go. So if producers Ray and Joe, if you're back there and can put up the so we're here in the MetaMask mobile prediction markets interface, and let's look for the parcel ones. Yeah, it's PARCL. Cool. So so these are the markets you were mentioning earlier, and these are the medium home value and their trajectories for it looks like they're just doing some of the largest markets first. Is that right?
Yeah, they're doing major metropolitan because I presume there's more information and more liquidity likely to be on that. Like it's in a city where there's millions of people, like LA or San Francisco, rather than Bend or somewhere else. Not that those wouldn't be valuable. It's gonna be harder to stand up, but like they're starting with the lowest hanging fruit, I guess, like the things where there's a lot of people and a lot of data and a lot of interest probably in all of that. Obviously, you're looking at these things, you can see the volume on that. It's pretty low, but these just launched. So like, but there's still a long time till resolution. Like this is almost a month away, 3 weeks away from resolution. But like, again, I think you could see the use case here. Like if the home value is going to be like we see here in real time, again, maybe not a lot enough liquidity to make this like a really true approximation, but if you can see like, oh, it has a X% chance of being in this value range. That's again, if with enough liquidity, enough when this gets stood up and people start adopting it, super great information. Like if we think people think home prices are going to go down, what do I need to do to adjust that? Do I need to adjust my business? Should I be buying or selling a house right now? Again, whether the normies use it as much, I don't know. But like, again, I think from the industry standpoint, anybody who's exposed to the real estate industry in any way, this data, realtors, builders, whatever, contractors, that's going to be super interesting information.
Yeah, it's interesting. The liquidity in the volume in these markets is a little low right now. They are pretty new still. I think it's just been a few days since these have been available on Polymarket and also here on MetaMask. So yeah, it'll be it would be informative to see these markets get a little bit more volume in the.
But what you see on something like this with a long time horizon, like there'll like as we get closer to it, people will probably like be trading more with more money behind it, with more conviction. Again, new, just like trying to like ramping up discovery of these things. There are thousands of things you could trade on at Polymarket right now, like just surfacing these things. Like people need to know they exist and all that. Again, Polymarket's got all its finger in a lot of pies, right? Like trying to like do discovery, like you can do like there's so many things, like so it'll take a little bit, but I also think as it gets closer to these time horizons that you'll probably see more trading on it as well.
Yeah, and like you point out, these actually don't resolve until February 1st, so there's still a few weeks on these. Okay, let's take a look at one more, and before we let you go, and of course this is the biggest one, and I think you might have at least some emotional skin in the game because you mentioned you're an Eagles fan.
I am.
So yeah, let's hit that top one there. Super Bowl champion 2026. Where are we at? See now the best team is the third slot there, the Broncos. But where's Philly at? Okay, just a hair below there. Tell me your feeling. You don't have to make a prediction or a pick. I think I know who you might want, but how you feeling about this market?
I mean, the teams that have a bye have a huge advantage, and it's actually interesting that people are rating Denver lower, right? Because I mean, this is the same at sportsbooks that they're not the favorite, despite the fact they have a bye this weekend. They don't have to play a game. Playing one less game is a huge advantage because that's not a game you can lose, right? So it's fascinating that the two best NFC teams, Seattle and the Rams, are
the Pats are even farther down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, I mean, again, this like it mirrors like perception about these teams and like how like again, people have been trading and betting on sports for a long time, and like you can like we know like there's like the people who trade on this, they have thoughts about this, like people who have real money behind this. Like there's a lot of money behind it. I mean, each of these teams, like you see Seattle 5 million, Rams 4 million, and this is, as we get closer, again, there's going to be more and more money traded on this. But I like Seattle has been dominant this year, and they're going to play at home if they're playing before the Super Bowl. So like you got to love those chances. I do hope the Eagles win a few games and I get to go up to Seattle and watch the game, because I would definitely do that. Wait, Super Bowl's in San Francisco too, I think, right? Is that right?
Yeah, Santa Clara.
I've been to a Super Bowl too. I went to the 2018 in Minneapolis where it was cold as butt. It's like, but yeah, it's like it's really interesting, like to see the prices and see how things change just as games. Like the thing in sports that's interesting from prediction markets is the little chart, right? Like you go up to the top and you see over time like how people are adapting or changing. It's like you're only one day, but if you go further out, you're going to see some flip flops, right? Of like teams winning and losing, and people and sentiment changing about it. That historical data is like actually kind of interesting to see how to track. And it's not something that exists at regulated sports books or any sports books. It's that prediction markets have this you can see the data and they show it, and it's a part of the UX, and it's super interesting. So I mean, I like the Eagles. The Eagles are favored to win this week. I like them to win. If they beyond that, they're gonna have to go on the road. Philadelphia fans love to be miserable and think our team's going to lose. We're a little more optimistic after winning a couple Super Bowls in my lifetime, but I would not trade on them to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think. I would probably I like Seattle and the LA Rams. Like those are clearly the two best teams in the NFC. They're better, I think, than the teams in the AFC and would be favored in a Super Bowl. So that's what I would trade on.
That's fair. I mean, I think it's wrong, but it's fair. I mean, honestly, my take, it's been such a bizarre and weird year in the NFL that I'll be probably staying away from this one. And I got it. You already said it, but just to reiterate, yeah, Denver has a first-round bye and a really crazy home field advantage at Mile High Stadium.
It could be cold and snow, and New England's used to it if they go to Denver, but other teams that are not as used to it. I mean, Jaguars playing the comfy confines of Florida. Like it's again, looking, I don't know, I'm not a good enough sports trader to like prescribe value to these things, but like Seattle with a buy and Denver with a buy at 11%. Again, they would not be favored probably in the AFC. I guess they would be at home, probably favored in the AFC Championship game. I haven't looked at headlines, but
depends on who it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been a weird season. I would take a flyer on somebody else, or if I'm doing emotional hedging, I trade 49ers to win. So because of then the Eagles, there's a fair amount of emotional hedging, I think, in sports fandom. Yeah. Like if you like my team, like I will trade against my team, but if they win, I'm happy. But there's actual people who do that. So
yeah, and it's interesting, and there is over 600 million in volume. So there's quite a bit of crowdsourced data in this. So very interesting to look at. Hey, anything else that you're working on that we should know about, or anything you want to share with the folks watching?
Yeah, I started a paywall at the Closing Line Substack it's more about sports betting data, but I'm also going to have prediction markets data. So if you're interested in that, I'm offering free trials to anybody who wants to try it. I just launching it like this week. So it'll be more US gambling data and less prediction market data, but there will be a pretty beefy report every month about prediction markets. I'm also helping to stand up an event in New York in March at an event in the gaming industry called Next.io. There's a day zero event that's going to be largely about prediction markets. If you're super interested, please check it out. There will be a link in my Substack to like how to sign up for that. And it's like there's going to need to be more events about prediction markets, and I'm hoping that I can help stand some of those up.
Awesome. Well, hey, Dustin, thanks again for taking the time to join us, and good luck with the Substacks and with everything else you're working on. Great follow, great source of information. Really appreciate your time.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.